Hi, Rachel.
Hello. It's good to be here, finally.
It is. Do you know what? That was the first word I wrote down when I was thinking, what could we talk about, was to actually just say, finally. Because I think this is the fourth time we tried and we have now succeeded.
It has been, the past 3 months have been quite the year, actually.
They certainly have. They certainly have. And you and I, we've been through a car breaking down.
Yes.
Me being sick. Storms and floods.
Yes.
And even though there is a very difficult situation going on, nothing has stopped us from doing it today, which I am very grateful for.
Listen, Sam, the sun is shining. It's all good. I think we're past the worst. So really, really good to be here. You know, you and I have chatted for quite a few times now, and I'm really excited.
And you know what? I was saying to you earlier on, this is the first one I've done in 6 weeks because I did put it on hold given the situation. And I'm really glad it's you. Because what attracted me to you was your level of outspokenness and the way that you like to convey your message. But I'm very grateful to say, welcome to Tasty Humans. Thank you for coming. And for people that don't know who you are, like, who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name is Rachel Godfrey. I am a health and fitness entrepreneur. I started my career as a physio. I spent 18 months in the NHS, and I had finally, after that time, got to the point where I realized I was actually clinically unemployable. So, you know, you do what anyone does at 21 years old. You fuck off to Australia to try to, quote unquote, find oneself. Finding oneself usually means people going backpacking. I am not a backpacker. I took a suitcase and I stayed in hotels. I did not stay in hostels. But I did go to Australia to, quote unquote, find myself. And I found home there. And I spent 10 years in Australia, got citizenship, built some really good businesses down in Australia, made some lifelong friends. I moved from physio into strength conditioning because growing up as a kid, I was always into sport. And, you know, at 14, going to school, you have a careers advisor come in and they ask you what you're interested in. And because I was a girl, they suggested physio rather than being an orthopedic surgeon. So there I was, being such a good girl back in the day. I decided that physio was going to be a good career for me. Anyway, needless to say, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't for me. So I think by the time I kind of come out the other side, 21, still really into sport, I then found that there was this kind of like gap in the fitness industry. I didn't want to just be a personal trainer. And I also didn't want to be a physio. And so there was this like gray area in the middle of end stage physio and then return to sports. So particularly in rugby, for example. So usually what happens is you have a player, they come off the pitch, they're in with the physio, and then they're straight back in the weights room. There's this like gray area there where, you know, with rehab, that somebody needs to fill that gap between having the clinical knowledge of a physio and then also having the skills that a strength coach has. And so I kind of filled that gap there for a while. Went more into strength conditioning. I was so lucky to have some amazing mentors who really took me under their wing and really sort of fell into my career then and ended up, the first half of my career was in contact and combat sports and then fell more into female fitness. And the reason I fell into that was because in 2009, 2010, I started posting videos on YouTube, as everyone does now, of lifting weights. And I get a lot of comments from ladies saying, well, you know, how are you so strong? And, you know, you don't look quote unquote bulky. And I guess that's where it all started. I launched my second business, Athletic Fox. And that was specifically strength training for women. And it was the first time that we launched online, and this is 2013. So I then kind of went into more of the tech side, right? Because being an entrepreneur, you have to do it all yourself initially. And I think that's actually the good way of doing it in building your first business, because if you know all of the levels of your business, you can delegate better, you can make better hires. And so when I built that business, I built everything from scratch. I mean, we didn't have the apps like you have now where you can just kind of plug and play. You know, you had to build everything from scratch. So that was Athletic Fox. And then that kind of brought me to 2015. I met my husband in a gym in London, as you do. And the rest of this is history. I went back to London for 15 months. And then we moved here to the UAE. So I have a couple of businesses now, all in the sort of health and wellness and fitness space, interesting investments and things like that. So yeah, I would say I'm got my fingers in many pies. Let's just put it that way.
I don't think I've got any questions. I think that was it. Do you know what I mean? You've just told your entire story in the space of the opening 5 minutes.
Well, I can't do it. Like, I can't say like I'm a physio, because I'm not a physio anymore. I can't say, you know, entrepreneur, because I also like investing in things, and I like, you know, I like researching things, and I also, do you know what, Sam? I love people. And even though I'm an introvert, I love people, and I'm fascinated in human behavior and identity and personal growth, and, you know, really finding out what makes people tick and what doesn't. And I think that that's where some of my directness comes from, is that I like to do things properly, and I like to do them quickly. And it really pisses me off when when there's like fucking bullshit in the way of it, like things that just stop you from achieving the thing. You know, like all I do in business and my life, everything is like results based and outcome based and growth based, because I believe that if we're not growing as humans in all areas of life, that's when you get stuck and stagnant. And, you know, you talk to people who are unhappy. The reason being is because they're stuck in one of the 5 bodies. And I talk about the 5 bodies being your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and energetic bodies. You're stuck in one or all 5 of those bodies. And the fitness industry just deals with the physical body. And which is why so many people really struggle with their fitness, because all they're doing is counting calories and macros and how hard can they smash themselves in the gym. And yet they're emotionally devoid, like they've got no spiritual practice, like mentally they're not challenging themselves. And I think this is only going to get worse, I think, with AI, where you're not actually using your brain to develop. So I kind of work across all of those areas. And, you know, my big thing is like creating happy people. And that's really, I think, the crux of it underneath is like, I'm very happy and I would love to show other people also how to be happy. But obviously that's like lots of layers to it.
Wow. I think my first question is, because Tasty Humans is all about why people do the things they do. And I would like to ask you, what were you like at school? What were you like as a kid?
I was such a good girl at school.
You were?
I hated it. I was a really good actress though. And I look at my son now, he's 7 and he's wild and he's like, oh, school is so boring. And, you know, he's got this, we've told him that, you know, his brain is like mummy's brain, which means that you've got like a supercar brain, but you need to learn how to drive that brain. You know, I've joked for a long time, I've got the attention span of a squirrel on speed. And, you know, some people will use words like, you know, ADHD and all of that. And I'm like, well, we're just wired differently, you know? And I think anybody who achieves anything in life, we've all got something, a little bit of something about us, right? That's perhaps like not normal. Label it what you will. I just say I've got the attention span of a squirrel on speed. I get bored very easily. And I see the same in my son. And so one of the things, however, that I've taught him, that I've taught myself, is discipline equals freedom. Because if you want to enjoy the fun things in life, you also have to be able to focus on doing the boring things. And so I make the boring things into a game and I just gamify things. And so I think I did that at school as well. I've been very financially driven since I was a kid. And so, you know, I remember my parents sitting me down and saying, right, at your GCSEs, you're going to get this much for an A star, this much for an A. And so in my head, like I'm doing a math already of, okay, so if I do this, then I get that. And so that's where the discipline came from. And then I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you work hard and you achieve something, God does that fulfill this internal need that we all have of self-worth. And I think confidence and self-worth is showing up, doing the thing that you said that you will do, irrelevant of who's watching. If you fail, you get back up and you do it again. In my world and in my book, no is not an answer. No to me means, oh, okay, no worries, I'll just find a different way of doing it. And so the more you can fail and the more you can fail quickly, the better. And you just kind of get back up and do the same again. And so the whole discipline equals freedom thing, did I enjoy school? Look, does anyone really enjoy school? I mean, I didn't despise it, let's put it that way. I didn't particularly enjoy it, but I just saw it as a necessary part of life. And I was, you know, when you're so young, you don't really see that there are other options and other choices. And I mean, do you really have other options and choices?
No, that I totally understand. When you are at school, you don't see it. You don't see the big picture. I think one of the biggest things you don't understand as a child is when your parents are saying to you things like, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. And you're like, no, because you're just sort of going there in this sort of monotonous entity that is school.
It is that's such a good way of saying it, monotonous entity.
And it is. And the thing is that, but then I've spoken to so many people on the podcast, teachers and stuff like that about school. And it's so difficult to get a read on, even though I'm now going to turn 50 this year, and it's like, I still don't know what it's trying to achieve. Is it trying to get you to learn anything, or is it trying to get you to integrate into society? Is it about sending you in there with loads of other people so you learn social skills and stuff like this? Because there are people that come out of school with nothing and go on to achieve great things. And then there are people that can come out of school with everything and then go on to do fuck all. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it ends up doing drugs and stuff because they're so depleted inside, and they've been pushed and forced and have no choice in it. I think one of the things that we're going to do slightly differently with our children, my children are 6 and 7, is that I don't think the world is changing, right? We've got tech, we've got AI, we've got robotics, we've got quantum computing, we've got all of this coming. I think the skills that children are going to need moving forward are different to the skills that we needed. I mean, for us, I remember driving around Birmingham as a junior physio with a map, for example.
Yes.
I mean, can you imagine getting the AA map out in the car now?
Yeah.
Talk about
you wouldn't know where to start. No one would know where to start.
Yeah, it's not exactly dangerous having a phone in a car when you're trying to read this map that's like upside down, and then you have to go like this square and that square. So, like map reading. Is it a skill? Well, actually, yes, perhaps that is a skill, but I don't think what I don't think kids are going to need is this like being able to just repeat information. Mm-hmm. However, having said that, what develops a brain? A brain is developed through reading something, you learn something, and then you write something.
Yeah.
And what's happening now is that people are getting answers through AI without the mental,
which is very dangerous. I think it's very dangerous. I don't know. The thing is it's like how much did a calculator stop your brain from developing true understanding of mathematics?
Well, I cannot do my 7-year-old's homework, maths
Yeah,
homework.
there you go. That's a really good point.
Literally, I cannot do my 7-year-old maths homework. If you gave me 325 divided by 480, I can't fucking do that. Where's my phone?
Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt to try and give you an answer to that.
Do you remember the dividing where you had to do this whole thing? Oh,
yeah, division, long division, algebra, everything like this. The thing is, calculators came along and they went, there you go. And we all go, oh, look how quickly we got to that. But then long term, how much, and we don't know, and I don't know, we don't know how much that has affected us negatively than sitting there and actually trying to figure it out, And what my fear is with AI is that you think it's smarter than you. We're being told it's smarter than us. When you type something into it, it answers you like it's smarter than you. Do you know what I mean? And we all look at them, and then there's some real fucking idiots in the world that just copy paste what it says. And people are doing this you've got me on one now with this, because there are really, really, really successful people I know in Dubai who are putting this on their LinkedIn. Well, and you can see it, where you can see the dashes and you can see.
It was an amateur move.
And you're like, but I can't name names, but it's like you want to go, I want to message them.
Yeah.
You're you.
Yes.
Just be you.
Well,
you're smart enough.
We talked about Kelly Lundberg earlier. I mean, Kelly's amazing, and she's she's the branding specialist, and I've been on Kelly's podcast too. And I love what Kelly does, because the most important thing in business is your personal brand. People don't buy the brand, the company brand. They buy into a personal brand first, and I think it's the first way to crush authenticity is to use AI. Now, listen, of course I use AI, right? There's being a consumer and a creator. But even I have noticed, and I was chatting on another podcast last week, and I was talking about social media growth and reach. And I did a test where I have been using a bit more AI-based stuff. And of course, I remove all of these M dashes. I hate these sentences that have like it's almost like a complete paragraph in one sentence with like points, like statements at the end. Remove all of those, but it's still AI. And I noticed that my reach had dropped, and I had noticed myself that when I saw something, and even if I questioned it, I could completely skim read it and skimmed past it.
Yeah.
So even if I'm doing that, then other people are doing that as well. And I think, again, people buy into people. They want to see, yes, they like to see the pretty pictures and stuff, but they also like to see the rough and ready behind the scenes and tell it how it is. So yeah.
Why do you think people buy into you then?
I can't lie, Sam. I
get that with you.
I've got no filter.
Where does that come from?
I've got no filter.
A question I wrote down, because I don't write many questions down, but one I wrote down for you was, where did this start? Or have you always been like this?
I'm answering this differently after something my mum said to me yesterday, because I was telling my mum about my son and how, we've taken him to be assessed, and like how can we help him with his like executive function and the way that his special brain works, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the questions that came up was, does he just talk, or does he like filter, what he's saying? And I said, well, actually, Xavi's quite good at, it's not like he says inappropriate things at inappropriate times. But of course, when he's dysregulated, as any of us do, when we're dysregulated, he says things that come out that he's either mean to his sister or, Amelie's mean to him. And, that's a kid thing. But my mum turned around to me and she said, oh, well, unlike you, you've never had a filter. You've always said what you thought. And I was like, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that this has just always been part of who I am.
But were you in any way, shape or form like, so when I ask about school, it's like, were you disruptive at school? Were you outspoken? Were you opinionated? Were you always being told to sort of shut up? Were you in detention a lot? No, listen, I will put my hands up. I don't ask people these questions without maybe confessing my own sort of stuff. Like I was definitely like sort of, I'd say a bit class clown, a bit disruptive. I was definitely a bit of a gobshite. But then I think that as I sort of reflect on it, I had this thing, and I'm not saying it's a good thing. I just didn't take things at face value. I remember things I would get in a lot of shit for was I'd be constantly asking why, why? And then I think certain teachers took that as me being disruptive because of my possible class clown personality. So like I say the same thing to you, which is like, how did this manifest as a kid then?
I had a best friend at school. She's still my best friend today, Lucy. Lucy and I, we were just like the terrible two. We would get into a lot of trouble inside of school, outside of school, chasing boys, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we were always very respectful at school. Were we class clowns? Yes, absolutely. Did we talk too much? Yes. I remember being in an English class with a teacher. I don't even know if she's alive today, but I'm not going to name her name just in case she is. But I used to fucking hate English literature. Right? I fucking hate it because she used to pick on me and she used to be nasty to me. And I didn't like that because even though Lucy and I were really like cheeky, we were cheeky. We were never disrespectful, right? We would be told once or twice, and all of our teachers, like they kind of knew how to work us, right? We would never go past the two times. If we were told off twice, we knew then we're going to have to shut up. And so a lot of our teachers, I remember being a science lesson once, we had this one teacher and he was like, okay, just do as I ask you to do. And then at 5 minutes at the end, you can entertain the class. And we used to play this game called Cow and Chicken. Now in science classes, particularly in those like old school chemistry labs, you had those big benches. And we had those like, you remember those like, just latex blow up gloves? God. Well, we were fucking howling because we'd blow up these gloves and like we'd play Cow and Chicken. And so Lucy and I would blow up these gloves and we'd spend the whole science lesson like coloring in our Cow and Chicken, like blowing up latex gloves. And then we'd be behind the desk and we'd play Cow and Chicken. And like we would get our kicks because we were the class clowns. The teacher would know that we'd behave so it was just a win-win situation. So I would say we were respectful, but yes, we did push boundaries for sure.
And what was it? I have to ask. Remember I told you outside that I got expelled from a GCSE. It was English literature. And so, not language, because I was always good at talking, but English. What was it you didn't like about it?
Just the nonsense, like, oh, To Kill a Mockingbird, Macbeth, like, all this like funny language. And this whole thing started in Latin. And I was like, I remember, in fact, it's all coming back to, God, PTSD. It's all coming back to me now. I remember putting my hand up once in Latin saying, "Sir, what's the Latin word for a shopping trolley?" And he's like, "Rachel." I'm like, "See, there's no word for a shopping trolley. What about toilet roll?" And he's like, "Rachel, there's no word for toilet roll." Oh, so in Latin times then, what happens when somebody goes to the toilet? And he's like, "Inappropriate." I'm just asking questions, So very similar to you. I was very curious.
Yes.
But again, I wasn't doing it disrespectfully. I mean, look, I was taking a piss with the whole shopping trolley comment, because knowing that there was no shopping trolley in Latin. But, I think what didn't I like about it being, I just also wasn't very good at it. And also being humiliated in class as well. My English lit teacher, she used to make me sit at the front and read this text. I'm not a good reader. I don't read out loud very well. And I hated it. And, Lucy would sit next to me and she'd be sniggering at me. And I'd be like, "Shut the fuck up." And I'd be trying to read this text and she'd be like sniggering. And it would just be a disaster. So I think it was a combination of many factors.
So what subjects did you like?
I love PE. And I love science.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? What was your favourite science? Because I think I don't know how old you are. I think I heard you say it once. I listened to a couple of your, and I'm not gonna sort of divulge.
I'm 42.
Oh, there you go, 42. Yeah. Okay, I thought you were right. Yeah, so I'm 49. So we're almost from the same sort of now.
Same era.
Science was chemistry, biology, and physics, and you had to pick two of them. I had to pick two when I went into the latter stages. What was your?
Biology was my favorite. Yeah. I didn't mind chemistry at GCSE, but then when I went to do chemistry A level, a whole new ball game. I dropped physics as soon as I could because physics and maths were very similar. So I was not good. I did I was in the stupid class in maths. So at GCSE, so I could only get a B no matter how hard I tried. So
okay.
Yes. Did you not have that?
I can't remember. I left school in 1992. I didn't go on to I left school in 92. 3 months before 3 months before I actually did my GCSEs, I got an engineering apprenticeship, which was the greatest thing my stepmother ever did for me, which was to actually acknowledge that if I went to college, I would be the same as I was in school. It's just, it's not cool. I'm not trying to say it's cool. It was just that it just wasn't me. I couldn't do the sit in a classroom and be dictated to because I was too inquisitive, too cheeky, whatever. And so I finished school on a Friday. I went to work on that Monday morning and I started in an engineering plant, working with my hands and stuff like that, being very active. And it was the best thing I ever did. So I can't actually remember if there was what layers to the schooling there was. You just kind of did it.
Yeah, I kind of...
I didn't do anything after it.
I do remember disliking maths a lot. And I remember being put in this class and there was part of me... I really used to struggle with perfectionism as well. And obviously like achieving and getting good grades was part of my self-worth. My self-worth was being completely tied up in being busy and achieving. So I got a lot of recognition for being bright, for being intelligent.
And did you put that on yourself? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
or
I
was
did.
that coming maybe from parents or upbringing?
No, I mean, look, obviously as all parents, I see it's so funny, you see the same behavior as a parent that your parents used to do with you. And I think my parents have only ever been like absolutely supportive. And I think actually when I left my physio career, my dad said to me, in fact, it was actually after I graduated and I went straight into work and applying for jobs. And Dad was like, just take 6 months out, just take some time. What did he used to say? He used to say, take some time to smell the roses. Mm-hmm. And I didn't because I caved to the peer pressure that my lecturers were saying to me, physio jobs are in short supply. And, I got offered a really good job in a really good teaching in a university hospital. It would have been silly for me to turn it down. And in hindsight, my parents knew better. So in a way, I wish I'd listened. Mm-hmm. But I think, were they supportive and did they push me? Yes, they did. And I'm so glad that they did. And I'm going to be pushing my kids the same way academically because, if I wasn't pushed academically, I would have gone off the rails in terms of, I wouldn't have ended up in a lot of trouble, but I wouldn't have achieved what I would have been capable of achieving. And I think that pressure from that perspective was absolutely a good thing, and it taught me discipline. And so I think that it's just one of those, it's funny now because obviously we work in emotional and behavioral change.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's yes, sometimes it can be conditioned from childhood. Sometimes it can be from, coaches. And I think sometimes it's just your genetics. And then, I always say genetics don't work unless you work the genetics. And so
I like
sometimes, we have these predispositions to be a certain way. And because when you find self-worth, even if it's like kind of pseudo self-worth, in doing everything right and doing it well and overachieving at an early age, you get all of the accolades, you get the, people saying, oh, well done, you're so clever, you must have worked really hard. Like these things feel good, especially when you're a kid. And I think that kind of then just grows through school, grows through university. And now what we do, especially we work with high achieving women, C-suite entrepreneur, etc. And what we find now is those traits that make them successful in the first place: perfectionism, people pleasing, overanalyzing, overwhelm in terms of completion addiction. So they can't rest, they cannot relax until everything on their to-do list is complete. This is crazy when, a lot of our clients are like raising finance, and it's, these rounds of finance are going on for 6-12 months or longer, and they just cannot switch off. And then you've got things like the human doing, where I said, your self-worth is being wrapped up in being busy and achieving. In the early stage of your career, your 20s and your early 30s, like these are amazing traits, right? Because they fuel and they really, really push you ahead. But it gets to a stage where these traits become the glass ceiling for growth, for whether that be personal, professional growth, financial growth, and they absolutely become the roadblock to your health, because people park their health. I'll just get ahead here and then I'll pick up my health. Unfortunately,
that is a really, really, really true statement.
You must see this all the time in hospitality.
I see lots of unhealthy people in hospitality. Hospitality is I don't know. I mean, I've done all sides of it, where I suppose some of the most intense jobs are in nightclubs, where you don't open until 10 p.m. You close at 6 o'clock in the morning. But there's a lot of shit that goes on in that type of stuff. It's being run on caffeine, do you know what I mean? Or you work in big restaurant chains, you can eat whatever you want, stuff like that. It's I don't know. The thing with hospitality is that it's a hugely energetic industry. But is it healthy? No.
Do you see a lot of burnout? I mean, we see burnout in every industry, but
I have a thing about burnout, right?
So do I.
It's like, I don't know. It's because I don't know if I know what it is, if this makes sense. Like, so I left home when I was 17. I moved in with my friends. They were all a number of years older than me. They were very career driven. And even though the careers we had at the time, nothing to great to look up to, everyone's gone on to do pretty well. A couple of them have gone to do really well. But it was like the philosophy between us all was you had to work. You wanted to be something. Well, now I'm talking about 1994, going through the 90s, moved back to London, where I was originally from, and working in the West End and everything like this. But you wanted to work. Working 12, 14 hours a day, having one day off. Even on that day off, you were focused on work. You were thinking about work. You were, even if you were like, I speak about this a lot with certain companies I work with. In the restaurant chains I did my early years in, everything was about being the best. You were the best waiter, the best bartender. You could only become a manager if you were the best. And you wanted to be the best. I mean, listen, you were hugely an entertaining character, and you were being foolish and stupid and God knows what, working very hungover and all these sort of things. But you wanted to be the best. And I don't know when it comes to the term burnout. It's like I'm going to link it to that thing, work-life balance. It's that if you love your job, why do you need work-life balance? Is that a term that's come along for people that are in careers that they hate? So when they go to work, they're just fucking annoyed.
I would call it, and I don't know. I kind of phrase it differently. Yeah. So I think you've got a really good point there. Burnout often happens when you're not aligned, meaning that you just said you're in a career that you hate. And I think let's use the word balance, for example. In my opinion, balance is used by people who are not in the 1%. Because if they want balance, and I usually refer to like people want balance when it comes to their nutrition and balance when it comes to their body. And I say to them, well, what you're really asking for is to sit in mediocrity.
Yes. Agreed.
If you want an elite physique, if you want an elite business, if you want to be the best, there's no balance there.
No.
But we have to spin all of the plates at once. And this is the DNA of a high achiever. And most people don't understand this. And this is why I do what I do now. There is only a certain amount of energy in our tank. And what gets placed where? So let's just take health, for example. Let's just look at a business, right? Your body's a bit like a business. You know, in a business, you've got your sales department, you've got your marketing department, you've got, you know, everything going on, right? Everything kind of happens at once. I say business is also a bit like winter, spring, summer, and fall. You have summer months where it's like all the cash is coming in. And then you've got your winter months where you're perhaps looking at operations, you're looking at systems, you're looking at things in the back end that you know are going to excel you during the summer months again. And you kind of come into spring, autumn, spring, summer, and fall. Unfortunately, your body your health is something that you can't just pick up and put down. Because every time you put it down, and we talk about this, we name it the campaign lifestyle. So the campaign lifestyle is your typical, you're in a work campaign for 6 weeks, or like all hands on deck, you know, you're doing your 16-hour days, fitness goes by the wayside, you finally achieve what you need to achieve, you feel good about yourself, and then you fuck off on holiday for 2 weeks, you drink one too many pina coladas, you come back, you realize that you gained 4 kilos. Oh God, I got to start the fitness thing again. You call your personal trainer, right, back in the gym, 3 days a week, get like you're strict on your diet, et cetera, et cetera. And then lo and behold, shit hits the fan again in work. And so this is what we call the campaign lifestyle. You cannot, and every time you put down your health and you try and pick it up again, you're behind. Yeah. So it's not like in marketing, for example, where you may be going through like a restructuring of the business and, you know, sorting out your operations, for example, and you're not putting any ad spend to marketing right now. It doesn't really matter. You've got your current clients. It's not a big deal. You can come in here and you pick up your marketing again. You can't do that with your health. You get this like gradual decline. And that's where it gets to the point where people say, I just don't recognize myself. And it feels impossible. And what people usually do then is shoehorn a diet and exercise program into a chaotic lifestyle. You can't do that. And so we really have to make sure all of these plates are spinning at once. And one of the worst things that people can do is, I will start on Monday. They get that dopamine hit of chasing a new program, preparing for Monday. They start on Monday, obviously shit hits the fan by Wednesday, game over. Now, I always say you plan for the worst times. So when our clients, you know, we've got three levels that we work with clients. So when clients apply to work with us privately, they're often C-suite, you know, high-level entrepreneurs, extremely stressed, enormous teams. And they'll say, oh, the time is really not good now. I've got all of this going on. I'm like, the timing is perfect. Yeah. I want to prepare you when things are shit. If we are optimizing for when it's shit, you're going to fly when it's good. People have that the wrong way around. They optimize for when they have a clear diary, which, by the way, is never. When do we ever have a clear diary?
When you have work-life balance.
When you have work-life balance. You'll be dead, mate.
No, but that's my point. My point is that you shouldn't have a clear diary. That's
but
what
you should love what you do.
This is what I'm saying, is that when people talk about work-life balance, and again, I think it's one of these things where, I don't know, maybe feel free to completely disagree with me. I love it when people disagree with me on this podcast, because sometimes I can sound like I know what I'm talking about and I don't. But it's like, in my going to school, going to work, the place I've worked in, the staff I've managed, being a staff member, I still subscribe to the notion, if you give a human being the ability to be lazy, they'll take it.
I agree with that.
And I really, really do, in the sense of, if your employer turned around to you and said, you can all have the next 2 weeks off fully paid, but I still need people to come in, You know what I mean? The ones that come in are the ones that don't care about the money, they care about the work. The ones that are like, no, fuck that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to get 2 weeks, I'm going to take it. And I think that when it, like I said, when it comes to going in and saying to employers or yourself, or even saying to yourself, I need work-life balance, you're using that term and you're giving yourself an out. That's why I really, really think, and I think, like I say, people that, what I can totally agree with what you're saying about the best time to go to the gym is when you don't want to. They're the best workouts. When you're sat on the couch, you don't want to go, you know you got to do legs, it's going to fucking hurt. Do you know what I mean? You've had 5 hours sleep, and it's those rare moments where you go, no, go on. And you realize that there's so much more in the tank than you actually thought. So yes, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I totally agree with what you're saying. And people should not have empty diary space if they're getting on with life.
I think the challenge is to push back on this. I don't like the word balance, right? I think it comes down to optimizing your lifestyle. So, and it also depends on where you are in life, right? So, for example, before I had the kids, I used to work really long hours and I loved it. When I had the kids, I realized, holy shit, I remember my son Zavi being 4 months old, and it was a really stressful time in the business. And I turned around and I said to David, I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. And we really stripped everything back. And it was more of a case of, because I'm used to being in summer, right? I'm a big go-getter. I have these big goals and I want to go and do big things. And having a baby really knocked that out of me, because I realized, holy shit, like I cannot do these two together. Look, you know, some women do, good for you. I didn't want to be like that. And it was only 2 years ago, 18 months, 2 years ago, that I really came back into work full time. And even now, I finish work at 6 o'clock at night. And every night it's painful for me to stop at 6 for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't want to stop because I love what I do. But equally, I know my values. I want to be a present mummy. My kids need me. They also see mummy, they see mummy works, but I finish at 6. I'm always there in the mornings. You know, we play together, and I actually, you know, I play and I'm a lot more present with my kids than most people are. And so do I work the hours now that I used to know? But I've also learned different ways of working. And it's not like, you know, I'm not in hospitality, right? I don't have to be everywhere around the clock. I can work that, like the volume of work that I get done in 5 hours a day eclipses what I used to do in 16 hours a day. And the reason being is because I've built a high performance brain. I know when I'm lagging, I stop and I rest. And so I think that's when I say I rest, I do something different rather than trying to flog a dead horse, which I did do for a long time.
I wanted to ask you about that actually, which is, how do you know when to stop? When you come to work, you know, like you said, you do more in that 5 hours. So what's happening in that 5 hours? When you say about building a high performance brain, have you literally figured out how to clear any distractions? Or do you, what does that look like, that 5 hour kind of setup for you?
Yeah, so I make it all game. I have to gamify it. So if I have got, you know, let's just say I'm doing work that requires creativity. Creativity work for me is usually started out of the house. So I'll go for a walk and I go without my phone. You know, obviously I've got my phone with me because I make notes. But it starts there. And then before I get home, I will have written the first sentence of what I need to do when I sit down. I then play a game because I can only work 40-minute stints. Okay. 40 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, wiggle time, right? So my son has wiggle breaks.
Okay.
So, you know, if he's sitting down to eat, we have wiggle breaks, and he says, Mummy, can I have a wiggle break? And so he goes and he'll go and get another book, or he'll go and get another toy to bring to the table, whatever it is.
What does your wiggle break look like?
My wiggle break looks like I get up, I go downstairs, I go outside, I walk to the end of the street and back. That takes me all of 7 minutes. So I can do it. It doesn't matter what the weather is. Even if it's boiling hot in the middle of summer, it's 5 minutes outside, and it's enough time for me to switch gears, because I cannot sit and stare at a computer screen for more than 40 minutes. So I literally put my phone's on. My phone is off. I've got a timer. It's like a little cow timer on my desk, and I set it for 40 minutes, and then I play the game of, okay, so how much work can I get done in that time? And now I know this has trained several things in me. First of all, I know I can produce work to high quality in a short period of time. So backing yourself is very important. Obviously, I know my work inside and out. So it doesn't require me to sit and think about how I communicate things. Second thing is that it's knocked perfectionism out of me. Because perfectionism is not the same as high standards, and people absolutely kid themselves. Some people pride themselves on, I'm just a perfectionist. Well, that's a really low standard because it's an impossible standard. And a lot of people that we work with, they're really struggling in leadership because they're projecting their standards, which are just impossible for their team to adhere to. And therefore, they then turn around and say, well, I'm just surrounded by idiots. It's easier to just do it myself. Well, you're really struggling with perfectionism because doing something perfectly doesn't exist. High standards are different. All right. So I do everything to a high standard and I trust myself to say the words, to deliver what needs to be delivered in a manner that is appropriate. And it's not my problem on how somebody takes something. So, high achieving women, I believe, are misunderstood. A lot of what we do, we can get called cold. It's not cold. We're being efficient. If a man sent an email, if you received an email from me that said, yes, fine, thanks, that would go to HR. Oh, Rachel's being cold. No, I'm just being efficient. Mm-hmm. If you received an email from a man saying, yes, fine, thanks, or yes, fine, no one would bat an eyelid, right? And so I really think that high achieving women are misunderstood. I mean, I had somebody on my social media, I've got a reel at the moment going around talking about this. And she said, oh, I got a call from HR just advising that I should perhaps use emojis on my emails. I'm like, emojis on your emails? You're a fucking lawyer. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. So I do think, I think we don't have to be cold, but we can be efficient. And I think that we can deliver the message that needs to be delivered in an appropriate manner. And it's not our fault if somebody takes that.
No, 100%. One of the things I cherish the most about going into hospitality, which was 30 years ago, I've always worked for women, right? I've always had female managers. So when I first became a manager, the first person that brought me forward and on my first day of doing training as a manager, her name was Vanessa Wilmot. You know what I mean? I don't know if you're ever going to watch this, you know what I mean? But hospitality teams work best when there's that balance in the management team. Yes. I have actually worked where there's been 6 guys, 1 woman, and you can see, you kind of look back at it, you're like, it's just a fucking boys club full of adrenaline and testosterone, and the one wonderful female that was in the management team was like one of us, you know what I mean? She was more, she was more hardcore than all of us put together. And then I've actually run teams, been around teams that were predominantly female, and then that has a number of its own issues, you know what I mean? And the only ones that work best are when it's balanced. The thing that I find very intriguing about how emails are perceived is like it's always whether or not the person reading it can understand whether this is right or wrong to begin with. Does that make sense? It's like, who cares about the context? Is that you've asked a question, you've got your answer. If you're not happy, that's on you, like you've said. It's how people receive the information, and that oversensitivity about, like, I can't believe about what you said about the emojis thing.
Oh my God,
we are in a world of fucking snowflakes. A fucking emoji.
We are in a world of snowflakes right now.
I think we're coming out of it. Right.
I thank the Lord we are. I'm very pleased.
And I tell you where you can see it, because I'm sure you'll agree with me. I'm just saying, we've got loads of time, because this we're going to align completely on this. You're coming out of it because of pop culture.
Yeah.
So you were in it was when you'd watch any movie and suddenly they're being so on the nose about woke and political correctness, and you have to do better, and this was the thing, and we're all the same, and everything like this. And then you think, and I used to watch this and think, these movies are losing money. They're really, really bad. A lot of Marvel, Disney, I'm happy to say it, Star Wars, stuff like that have been killed by this stuff. And now you get to the point where you go, well, I wonder how long this is going to go on for before people are like, look, this is just not working. And now in the last couple of years, you can see it's coming out, and we're just getting back to some good old-fashioned storytelling. So yes, I think we have been in a world of snowflakes. I think it's been really weird Do you know what I mean?
It's been so weird.
Because it's like, you can get offended by anything. I could get offended by anything if I wanted to, but you're kind of just supposed to go, yeah, all right. I found the whole thing so bizarre.
Just the whole woke situation was just absolutely mind-blowing, and total lack of ownership.
Yeah.
Zero responsibility on self. Everybody outside needs to bend over backwards to please me. Sorry, that's not how the world works.
No.
So no, I'm very pleased things are coming out the other way.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that this is the thing, because when you said about accountability, and I'm not saying, if you disagree with me, please go ahead. I'm like, any person, it's why I do a podcast that's completely unscripted, because I'm like, we're going to talk about whatever we're going to talk about, and whatever comes out, even in this format, whatever reasons people have, why, maybe the reason why I'm doing this or the reason you're here. I mean, we've met in person today, do you know what I mean? And stuff like that. It's like, I want to put people in the position of, you're going to be really careful about what comes out your mouth, because you've got to be able to take ownership for that. And the thing is that I think that anybody has the right to say whatever they want, but they have to be very careful about being held accountable for it.
There's that, yes. But I also think that on the other side of that is, you have to be authentic.
I couldn't agree more.
Do you know, here's the thing. Okay, so let's compare now this time, space, reality in the real world here.
Yeah.
And then you have the online world. And in the online world, I get lots of love letters from the internet goblins and these trolls who write lovely things.
I was going to ask you about this, because you posted about it, didn't you?
I did. And my favorite comment, I think last week, was that I look like I was a meth addict. Because I'm shredded and I had a six pack, and somebody said that I look like a meth addict. I thought that was very funny. So I did screenshot that one and I did respond, thank you. But I do think I think by the time you get to 40, one of my neighbors said to me, Rach, I remember I was 39, I was turning 40, and she said, Rach, enjoy it. The day you turn 40 is the day you give your last fuck. And I was like, well, I don't really give many fucks anyway, so this could be very dangerous. She was right. And I do think there's another level of self-worth and confidence that comes at 40 where you're really not bothered about what people think about you. And it's really, it's very comforting. I think your friendship circle gets even closer. You experience real life events together, good and bad. You have experience, you have a lot of knowledge, and I think you know yourself. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I teach now is, I always say, knowing who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going in life. And when you know who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going in life, none of this stuff on the internet really matters. But I think what matters is, yes, you should be accountable for what you say, and you should own what you say. But if you talk to people in the real world, I think you'll find that, a lot of people, even if you find this kind of like area in the middle that's like, yeah, we actually agree on that. Like, I don't fully agree on what you've said here. This is kind of like my take on it based off my experience, but we kind of agree on this stuff in the middle. And on the internet, I could say I love cats, and somebody will come back with, why do you fucking hate dogs? You are so evil because you don't like dogs. I'm like, dude, I didn't say anything about dogs. I just said I love cats. And this is the issue that we have like on the internet. And on the other side of that, people are really mean and they are so rude. And I do think that if you're going to be on social media, you do have to have some very thick skin. And oh my God, if you're a teen on social media, early 20s, and you really haven't established who you are, this is bad news. It really is.
100%. I wanted to sort of quickly come back to that word authentic, which is, if I haven't watched every single one of your posts and everything, but when I have...
Why not, Sam?
Because there's a lot of them. But then
there's a lot of them.
And I'm not going to... Just going to give the examples. One of the ones was what you said about schoolboys and what we're doing to young kids and everything, which I won't finish that. So one of the ones I really liked was, I can't remember exactly what you said, but you said something like, you're not going to get in shape if you listen to that voice that's going, ooh, you can have some wine.
Oh,
ooh,
yes.
you can have a pizza.
The croissant.
Yes, that was it. And the thing is that you're an example of exactly what I was talking about, which is that you say exactly what you're saying and you'll back it up by, it's just you. Do you know what I mean? And if you watch enough of your content, it's quite different, but it's all got that same directness to it. The thing about, and I've had this conversation with the people on here, the thing about authenticity is I think it's a word that's being really overplayed, where it's like, I'm being my authentic self. And it's like, no, but you're actually not. You're looking into a camera, you're talking online, and you're saying what you think other people want to hear. Do you know what I mean?
That's the wrong way to do it.
And this is something I wanted to sort of ask you about, because you said that you started putting videos on YouTube in 2009.
Yes.
YouTube was like 3 years old. Do you know what I mean? There must have been about 4 accounts back then.
Yeah, I think that's why my account grew pretty quickly.
It was, one thing I wanted to ask was, when you first started, were you straight out the blocks like this?
Yes.
Or so why did you feel the need that it had to be just on the nose? Like,
I don't think I did. And I mean, this is going back to that thing you just said about people saying that they're trying to be authentic. I honestly, I don't know that I'm being authentic. I'm just being me. And maybe that's a God-given gift of just telling it how it is. And I'm not that worried about what people think about me, you know?
fair enough.
I think one of the things would be, and actually, like David, my husband, he picked this up on me. So David's a behavior, he works in behavior, so he analyzes behavior, behavioral analyst, emotional behavioral change. And so he's obviously, you should. David's a phenomenal with this stuff. So one of the things, obviously being married 10 years, he obviously analyzes all of my quirky traits. And I think he said to me in the beginning, you know, the thing is with perfectionism, all it's about is the fear of being judged. And I was like, no, it's not. It's about high standards. And he was like, Rachel, it's not. You want to get it perfect so that nobody can criticize you, so that nobody can tell you that you're not good enough, so that nobody can say that your work isn't good enough. That's self-worth. That's not high standards. And I was like, holy shit. I'm going to have to change my ways, because for a lot of people struggling with perfectionism, they don't see it like that. I didn't believe it's only when like he started to explain it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is really where we have to shift things. But I think, I think I've just always been this way. I don't know. We should ask David. We should get David on and ask him.
You're coming on. Do you know what I mean?
We should ask David, have I always been this way?
Let's get you both on.
Yeah.
That would be really, really funny. Do you know what I mean?
It's a bit of banter between us.
Do you, when it comes to other, let's say, online fitness, I don't know, people, gurus, influencers, everything like that, can you spot the fakes?
Yeah, a bunch of fucking grifters, mate.
And there I was thinking there might be an element of diplomacy in your answer, but
I'm being diplomatic.
Okay, perfect. So,
right, where do I begin? Okay, so I think as a fitness industry,
I'll tell you where to begin. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, please tell me.
Okay, where I'd love you to, for people watching, it's like there's so much of this stuff when you're scrolling through it. So, what is like the top fucking 3 things that if you see them say it, they're a fucking grifter? So people can just go, no, because when you look at what you do, it's obvious that what you're doing is real and it works, and the way you look and the way you present yourself. So it's like, what are the top 3 things? People are right. If you see someone saying that, they're full of shit, because there's so much bullshit, and I think it really gets in the way of people's progress. But yeah, sorry, go on.
So I think one of the first things is that people talk in absolutes. So you must train in a way that is in line with your period or your cycle, right? This is something that's pretty big in the fitness industry at the moment. It's like this cycle syncing thing. Now, look, if you're talking in absolutes, this is nonsense, because myself included, I can train any time in my cycle. I don't really see any effects in like strength, or, you know, I'm pretty energetic like my entire cycle. I'm very healthy. So if I was going to train like that, I would diminish my returns. Whereas some people have horrendous cycles. But I don't think they should necessarily train that way. They should go by how they feel in their body. And so whilst we, of course, have guidelines, I mean, I spout these things all the time, right? 30 to 50 grams of protein 3 times a day, making sure you're sleeping 8 hours a night, fix the psychological habits that are keeping you stuck, walk 10 to 15,000 steps a day, you know, all of these things. But there's nuance there. Now, I can't give the nuance on a context in a 15 to 30 second clip. Right. But I think when somebody's talking in absolutes, you must do this, you must do that. That is a bit of a red flag for me. I think when when I grew up in the fitness industry, I've been doing this for 20 years. You had to be really good technically at what you did. And now you don't have to be good at what you do. So we're having like 21, 22-year-old fitness influencers spout absolute tripe, which at 21 or 22, you can get away with. You can't get away with that at 40. And so I do think we have to look, here's the thing. There's the science of fitness. Let's just call it science of fitness. And then there's the art of coaching. And so one of the issues in the fitness industry, and these are not grifters, is that I'd actually say the opposite. They're probably too smart for their own good. They're 100% science-based. I'm not 100% science-based in what I do, because I have 20 years of experience and I'm very good at what I do. So I have the art of coaching. So I draw from my experience. And so I feel that it is a bit of a red flag for me when somebody is only 100% science-based. Why? Because we are mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic, and physical beings, right? Unless you're looking at the science in all of this area, which, by the way, if the science is to a point, you're already behind. Right? Because we're learning new things every day. And this is where I do think the art of coaching and knowing the person comes in. So we've got speaking in absolutes, being hardcore in one camp or another, right? So people are very, very science-based and will only go off the science, or they completely negate the science and just do it their way because they're experienced. I think either of those two camps are probably a bit of a red flag. And then the third one... I don't really have a third one, to be honest. I mean, I could smell them a mile off. But I think generally speaking, look at what somebody's doing, look at the results that they're getting, and are they trying to help people? My whole thing is trying to help people. Now, all right, I call people out on their behavior as well, because I want standards and I want a higher standard. It is important.
Because like I said earlier on, give a human the ability to be lazy and they'll take it.
Exactly that. So I want somebody to be held to a higher standard. But that does come with people taking me the wrong way, saying, oh, well, you don't understand my situation. No, I understand your situation very well. But for me to wrap you in cotton wool right now is not going to help. So for me to sit in the mud with you and say, there, everything's going to be okay. When you're 20 kilos overweight, you're type 2 diabetic, and you're fucking depressed, honey, everything is not going to be okay unless you pull your fucking socks up. I will be with you. I will hold your hand every single step of the way, but you have to take responsibility now. And so that's how I operate.
So somebody who is 20 kilos overweight, type 2 diabetic, and depressed.
Yes.
What is the very first thing that they need to understand? And I'm going to leave that right there.
I love this question, because one of the things that I'm very good at is that, let's just say, for example, you were my client and you were somebody who was 20 kilos overweight, you were depressed, type 2 diabetic, or at least pre-diabetic. I would ask you what you want more of in life. And you're going to sit there and tell me everything that you don't want. I don't want to be fat anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to feel shit anymore. And I'll say to you, but Sam, what do you want? And I'll start to extract information out of you and things that start to just like light a little spark in you. And then I'm going to get that spark and I'm going to turn it into a bonfire. And I'm going to create this image of you and this identity for you that is so powerful and so strong. And I'm going to talk to this version of you, not who you are sat there today, because your body is a delayed representation of who you are. It's a representation of who you've been being up until this point in time. So I'm not talking to Sam 1.0. I'm talking to Sam 2.0 here. And I'm going to hold this identity so strong, and I'm going to help you picture this, and then start to help you embody it, so that you walk into this and as a result, moving towards what you want. Because, when you put in Google Maps, we put our destination in. So we need to put the destination in here. Who do you need to become in order to be able to get the thing? That is the crux and the key of what I do. Now, okay, if you're 20 kilos overweight, you're depressed and you're pre-diabetic, I'm probably in favor of putting you on a GLP, right?
It's a GLP.
The weight loss injections.
I was about to ask this.
Right. So I'm ambivalent towards them. In some people, they are absolute lifesaver. And in other people, they are being overused. I always say that they are being overused but underutilized. These are extremely powerful peptides, extremely powerful, and used in a right context, in a right situation. They are amazing and incredible, and they can be absolutely life-changing. But what I will say is that I take a lot of people also off GLPs. We are often the end of the line when people come to us. They have been seen and done everything. And often they've done GLPs, they've done gastric banding. They are at the end of the line when they come to us. So I don't believe that people need to stay on GLPs forever, but I do think we need to address the 5 bodies: mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic, and physical. The GLPs manage the physical side because we manage emotional hunger, emotional cravings. And we need to fix the physical cravings with good, healthy, nutritious food, 30 to 50 grams of protein, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm in favor of GLPs in the right situations. Unfortunately, now I have found that obviously there are the whole Hollywood thing where, we have ladies and guys ladies in particular, my size on a GLP. I think that's inappropriate.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yes.
Right? And so you've still got to do the hard work. But I think a GLP can really assist somebody who's really struggling.
It's about habit change, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's about if you just cheat and then you stop, your habits come back.
Yeah, and identity.
I know somebody who had their liposuction.
Yes.
Paid, God, I don't know, I think it's 100 grand.
So expensive.
For this, and looked fantastic, walked into work. They're not going to watch this, so they walked into work with a box of donuts and just went, "Oh, I can eat these now." And it's like, no, because you fucked it, because that's not, you know what I mean? Your habits have not changed.
Because their identity hasn't changed. So I go one layer up and we talk about identity first, because then that will then obviously influence the habits. So yes.
Now we have come to the end of just, to be honest with you, the best comeback episode, because I haven't done this for 6 weeks. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
And I normally ask every guest, if you could only say one thing, what would it be, and everything like this. But you've just sort of relayed quite a lot of information about how people could start looking at this. Now, because we are actually recording on April the 2nd, and it is obviously a very troubled time for us here in Dubai, you're a serial entrepreneur. And one of the things that you actually said was that you could never subscribe to that 9-to-5 lifestyle, being told what to do for how much money and this and everything else. What the question I'd like to ask you is, and I think we have a lot of value to people that are watching, is what does the next 2 months look like for you in this situation? Because there's a lot of people right now who have unpaid leave, salaries cut, redundancies, fear, everything like this, because the economy's taken a real beating. But as an entrepreneur that's always trying to find the positives and to come through it, what does the next, let's say, 2-3 months look like for you business-wise?
Well, I'm in a very privileged position in the fact that my business is online. We are global. And so in terms of like the current situation here, it doesn't directly affect us. But of course, it's now a global thing. Yeah. And so it may affect us. So, I deal with these things like I deal with everything. And that's that, okay, so you look at the situation, you look at, okay, how is this going to affect my business and how is this going to affect my personal life? And the answer is that we don't know, because we're currently sitting ducks. Yeah. And so how do you manage that? Well, you manage what you can.
That's actually a really good way of putting it, sorry.
You manage what you can. And so for me, obviously I had cancelled trips to Australia. I was supposed to be running seminars over there, all the hoo-ha of rearranging all of that. Once I had done all of that, I put that energy to bed. I refocused my energy on what I could do. What can I do? I can train more. Dubai's quieter, the UAE is quieter. I can get some amazing staycays and support local businesses. I can throw myself into work. I don't have to do the preschool shouting at my kids, put your shoes on, because they're being homeschooled. And so I look at this actually as there are many perks to this, and I can throw myself now into launching we're just about to launch a new brand as well. So launch this new brand. There's less noise. And so whilst there's a lot of noise going on in my household and in my business, there's less noise. So in a way, I've thrown myself into it. So what do the next 2 months look like? I'm hopefully, inshallah, going to Australia in May to rerun my seminar, which hopefully this time won't be cancelled. And we're launching a new product. And so for me, it's almost like reshifted. It's almost given me the energy because we had Ramadan in there as well. That was very quiet. It almost wasn't that much of a shift for me. And I know the thing is, because you're in hospitality, Ramadan's a very big time for hospitality. You have iftars, huge iftars every night, huge. Whereas for me, in my world, it was really quiet time. And so it's gone quiet time into kind of even more quiet time. So doing what we can, obviously supporting local businesses where we can, but otherwise, honestly, business as usual. And just being aware that things could change at any point in time. We are literally sitting ducks. And so until then, business as usual. I feel very safe here. I always say I'm probably safer here than I would be in any other country. And you know what I think this has done is just, for those of us who've been in the UAE for a very long time, really just consolidated our faith, trust, and love in this country and the government. Phenomenal leadership. I mean, I think I speak for every entrepreneur here and for most residents here as well to say that the way that the UAE government have handled this situation, honestly, has been phenomenal. I am so proud to be here in the UAE. And, you know, I was just driving here from Abu Dhabi and you see on the signs on the road, like everyone in the UAE is Emirati. Like, that's so nice, right? So yeah, I still feel very lucky to be here and still feel very safe.
I totally agree. And for optics wise, we can't sort of dive into how it's been dealt with here, but it's weird in a time of feeling very unsafe. You're made to feel very safe and secure.
Absolutely.
It's a strange environment. So, but, and I will do it in Tasty Humans fashion, if you could summarize because I'm getting the signals like to stop talking, but which I think is very difficult for both of us. But the thing is that if you could summarize your entire career, life, achievements, everything into one word, one sentence of advice, what would it be?
Be and remain delusionally optimistic.
Fantastic.
Because delusional optimism gets you everything you want and more, because the better it gets, and show me how fucking good it can get.
That's awesome. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you
for driving here and doing this. I'm really glad we got it done on the 4th attempt, and I hope we get to do part 2 in the future.
We will, definitely. We'll bring David on. Thank you so much, Sam.
No problem. Thank you.